wonder, well, what's going on if God knows everything so perfectly? Why isn't he intervening? Especially when we just heard from the very beginning of the book of wisdom, love justice. So where is God's justice? Well, first we have to understand about God's justice. It's often misunderstood. We can think of mercy much more easily. Mercy is an attribute of his love. We tend to think of God's justice coming from his anger. And although God's justice is quite different from his mercy, they both are aspects of his perfect love. St. Therese of the Child Jesus, she said, precisely because he is just, God is also compassionate. Of course, justice is distinct from mercy. God's justice provides for all that we need, for our well-being and our salvation. God's mercy tends to give us more than we need. But understand that God's justice is never separated from his mercy. It presupposes it. When humanity tramples on the rights of God and offends him, instead of honoring him and loving him, then his justice does intervene. And yes, justice is punishment, but it's a type of punishment designed to bring about his mercy. As it says in Proverbs 3:12, for whom the Lord loves, he chastises. God doesn't punish us to destroy us, but to help bring about our conversion. That is where mercy enters into our lives. There would be no mercy if God simply abandoned us to our sin. I remember hearing a talk by Dr. Scott Hahn on this very issue. He gave a very simple example to understand this, how God's justice works. He made the point that when a drunk drives home and reaches there safely without incident, he continues to drink and drive. But when he's pulled over and arrested, yes, that is justice. But it's also that slap in the face that helps him to convert and stop drinking. Justice is punishment, yes, but God's justice is sent as remedies to cure our soul of sin. So how is God's justice working in the world today? Well, I was looking at the book of Job, thinking about this, because he suffered so much. And even when he was at what most of us would feel as a sense of despair, he understood God and wisdom. It says in Job 12:23 and 24, he makes nations great, and he destroys them. He enlarges nations and leads them away. He takes away understanding from the chiefs of the peoples of the earth and makes them wander in pathless waste. He had such wisdom that he never doubted for a moment God's command of all that was happening in the world. And he recognized that those who rejected God end up wandering along a pathless waste. But isn't that what we have today? Leadership and governments all around the world, international corporations, educational institutions, it's seemingly everywhere, all our leadership and every institution, even the church, are wandering along a pathless waste. This is what has been chosen. And God doesn't interfere with our free will. And so now we're seeing the fruit of the godless direction. It's the breakdown of our institutions, especially the breakdown of families. That is the fruit of sin. It is really God's justice that we experience that so that we can turn back to him, cry out to him for his mercy. God gives us what we choose. You know, Our Lady of Fatima told us that war is a punishment for sin. That God would punish the world for its sins in our times by means of war, hunger, persecution of the church, and persecution of the Holy Father, unless we listened to and obeyed the command of God. But Our Lady of Fatima also promised that in the end her Immaculate Heart would triumph, and a period of peace would be granted to the world. So that punishment has to come first. It's God's justice to purify the world, but it would bring about peace. There can be no peace if we continue to ignore the gospel, It says in Isaiah 32:17, "And the work of justice shall be peace, and the service of justice quietness and security forever." Do not fear the justice of God. It does come from his love, and it is God's justice that will eventually bring peace to the world. Fear also does not come from God. It is a trick of the evil one. As we get closer to God and understand his justice working in our souls, we learn to embrace it and to recognize it as truly his love. And that love will cast out all fear.